Today, we're going to talk about the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. My ladies and gentlemen, we have just a few hours left until the next major movements in the crypto market. Will Bitcoin's price soon climb towards $80,000, or should we expect a crypto market correction in the coming hours? Let's start by looking at the current Bitcoin price, then we'll move on to discuss altcoins. We'll also cover new trading opportunities, both long and short positions, and finally, we'll explore when the bear market might potentially come to an end. So make sure to watch. What did we discuss in our previous videos? I told you that between these red lines, resistance lines pass, meaning points where a correction is probable. They were located between $74,100 and approximately $68,400. I told you at the beginning of the video that we have just a few hours left until the next big movements. Let's see when exactly these movements will occur. Today we have inflation data being released. This is a new photograph you see. Here the market is operating on the premise that inflation has neither gone up nor come down, meaning it's expected to stay around 2.4%. This here is an old screenshot. In this one, the market was assuming that inflation had actually risen. So how would that look? If inflation has indeed risen, the market will react quite negatively to this, meaning the crypto market will definitely go down. If inflation has come down, the market will move upwards. And here these red lines, whose role I've already shown you, might come into play. Now what's important, March 18th will be very volatile because there will be a Federal Reserve meeting. We also discussed with you that we have a problem between the US and Iran. There's a possibility that inflation might rise. And the Fed might tell us about this on March 18th. What does this mean? It means that the Fed will most likely not lower interest rates anytime soon, and they will monitor inflation data that will be released in the coming months. So, at this very moment, we are about to receive the inflation data for the month of February. However, the significant conflict between Iran and the United States actually commenced in March, which means we truly need the data specifically for March, and those figures will only be made public in another month's time. Therefore, it is extremely important to exercise a high degree of caution. There is a distinct possibility of a market correction because of the inflation data released today and also in the upcoming months. Look, the support zones, where are they located? They are situated between $70,000 and $55,000. You can see them on the right-hand side. See, the yellow and blue lines indicate to us where the support levels are located. The most recent support level is found at 54,850. Following that, there is a support level at 45,000 and it concludes at $39,960. Okay, let's take this information. So if we were to assume that because of inflation, the exchange rate will go down, that means we have a support level right here and right here. There are support levels between 45 and 40,000. I'm probably operating on the assumption that our bear market might finally conclude right here, if a correction were to suddenly occur. Bitcoin's price has been steadily falling for an entire year now. Well, no, not quite a full year, a little bit less than that. Altcoins have been declining for more than a year, so Bitcoin will eventually turn around. Do you recall us discussing the significance of these particular blue lines? You can see exactly how it played out right here. The price then breaks through the blue line, it breaks through these red lines and moves upwards. That means we need a trend change. There's no trend change yet. And you can also see this blue line right here. This blue line will be important for us later because it's our main trend. It's very clearly visible on the weekly time frame. So if you switch the chart to the weekly time frame, you can clearly observe how this indicator, these red lines, precisely fall onto this blue line. That is, these will be resistance lines in the future. Even if we assume Bitcoin's price rises to 82,000 today, there will be a resistance line. That's the line where a correction is likely. So we're discussing the long-term outlook. If we assume the bear market ends soon, the situation should look roughly like it did in 2023 when the bull market started. So in the year 2022, we experienced a bear market, but then in 2023, a bull market truly began. Therefore, it will be crucial for us to break through this specific blue resistance line in the upcoming future. If the price suddenly drops and finds consolidation right here, it will then break through it at this point, which means approximately sometime in the summer when the Federal Reserve might consider lowering interest rates closer to summer. And you will see these red lines in the future will be moving right here. They will be following along this blue line on the weekly time frame. So be careful because today will be quite volatile. As I've mentioned before, my premise is that sooner or later this Bitcoin bear market will come to an end. Well, that's quite logical and it really should be ending soon. Therefore, I don't believe we'll see another drop of 20 or 30,000. I think that right here, most likely we've found a potential bottom. However, another correction might occur, for instance, because of the Fed, but we'll discuss that further down the line. Let's look at the current situation regarding Ethereum's price. The price of Ethereum, just like many other altcoins, has simply been trading sideways for an entire month. Right here on these red lines, we can see resistance levels. If due to inflation today, the price moves upwards from these red lines, there's a strong possibility of a correction. These are located between 2,269 and approximately 2,040. That is, this is the exact place where Bitcoin is currently located. So now everything depends on Bitcoin, how it will develop, and Bitcoin depends on inflation data and the Fed meeting. So on the 18th, it will be very volatile, and as you can see here, there's also a dotted line. See the blue one? This will even be the main trend in the weekly outlook. So when the price breaks the blue line, as you can see, it happened here. For example, this is a daily outlook now. We have a similar situation. You see the price is fighting these red lines. It's starting to fight this blue line. So there's a chance for growth, but here, if it grows, there's a chance for another downward correction. That's roughly around $2,600 for Ethereum, but we'll discuss that later. Yeah, I want to look at the Fed meeting and the inflation data to see what's happening with them. It's currently on the red lines, which means these are resistance lines, and it's also positioned below the blue line. That is, the blue line represents our downward trend. Solana hasn't broken through the trend line yet. These specific zones will be crucial for you if Bitcoin experiences a correction. So if Bitcoin drops to $40,000, Solana will likely stop around 35. If Bitcoin goes to $50,000, Solana will probably stop around 47. This particular zone, for instance, is located at $56. So these are support levels just in case a correction occurs. Well, for now, Solana, as you can see, by the way, the resistance zones are located right here, $86 and approximately $97. Solana is still in a downtrend, but this trend will end for it sooner or later. Solana here began its fall roughly around September, but there are other altcoins that have been declining for more than a year. So Solana and Ethereum, we can say, are the exceptions here. However, the vast majority of altcoins have been declining for well over a year now. Therefore, sooner or later, this bear market will finally come to an end, and it's already almost over. All that's left is to wait just a little bit longer. I repeat, inflation data is very important. Today will be volatile, and the Fed meeting is also very important because at the press conference, they might say that due to events happening between Iran and the US, there's a chance prices could rise, and then it will be difficult for them to lower the interest rate. So that will be the catch, but we'll see that a bit later. I wish you a good day and see you soon. Bye.